So it is a chainmail go week for me here in the Steampunk Garage because I have lots of stuff to do. It's pretty much a full Persian day, so a couple people have been asking how I weave. This is what I do. Here's a pile of 16 gauge, here's a pile of 14 gauge, here's a pile of 12 gauge. I generally keep 3 sets of pliers. These can be bent or straight nose, they don't matter because they're just to fix sixing as I go. So I use whatever pair of almost worn out pliers I have hanging around to do that. But this is how I hold my pliers. I've got the straight nose ones, or the straight chain nose here, and then I have the bent nose. I just started using these Xuron 90-degree ones. I really like them, except that they tend to knurl the rings because this edge here is so sharp that it cuts into it like having teeth, and sometimes it scratches them up, which I don't like. And we actually had to modify them because the thing inside here, the point inside the handles here is so sharp that it just ground its way straight through and would poke out the bottoms of this. So we actually filed this down and then we crammed some Gorilla Tape in the bottom to keep it from happening anymore. But we returned the last pair and they replaced them. So it hasn't happened since I've done that. But if you're going to get these pliers, I love them because they have great leverage, but I recommend doing what we did, which is filing down those sharp edges and then cramming some tape in the bottom so it doesn't wear through the bottom. Anyway, one down, one up. I hold my pliers like this, like I'm shaking hands with them. So I have a nice big, like deep grip. I'm not doing this point of the finger thing that some people weave like this. That puts a ton of strain on your hand and your wrist and your joints, and especially on your elbow when you're doing that. Nice big grip, so when you're weaving, it actually is using the big muscles in your back to weave because you're weaving with all these motions as opposed to these motions, right? There's a lot of people weave like this. That is terrible for your hands and your joints and your wrists. You want to, you need to grab the rings on the opposite sides. So anyway, this is how we weave. I have on my little pile of rings. I spread them out so I can grab them easy. I'm just doing this. These rings have been opened by my ring opening minions. So this is a new guy and he opens them really, really wide, which I'm not keen on, but hopefully he'll learn and stop doing that because it just gives me more work to do when I have to do that. So I feel it sixing a little bit, right? I'm going to pick up these guys, compress it to fix the sixing really quick. When you do that, it pops open again, and then you just close it a second time. You feel it. Feels good. Next ring. Just do that. If I still feel a little scratch there, even though I fixed the sixing, I'll run my file over it really quick. And then I'll close it again. But once I get into a groove, I usually start manually fixing the sixing as I go. So I just drag one pair of pliers down a little harder. Okay, so that's the 16 gauge. That's what I've been making all day. Works exactly the same for 14 gauge. These 14 gauge ones all have a little 6 in it. That's much harder for me to correct as I go. But since I'm just mashing it into itself, it doesn't really pop open while you're doing it. So you don't always have to close it a second time. A bunch of these 14 gauge have a big nasty burr sticking out on them, so I just toss those ones aside. And then later I'll go back and I'll like have a burr scraping session where I'll take them all off. Okay, that. Same with 12 gauge. Works exactly the same way. Actually, these ones I'm not weaving together because the 12 gauge I need for a different necklace. So I just have to pre-close all these. In case you're wondering how my pliers break all the time, it's either from doing this, or more often than not, it's from fixing the sixing. Because then you're putting pressure directly on the joint when you're doing this, and it'll just bend open or snap off or something, because it's really not meant for pressure of fixing sixing on stuff like that. The 12 tend to six a lot more because I can't fix them at all as I go. I mean, it's such like a minuscule fixing. I don't know if you can even see it, but I can feel it when I do that. And if I can feel it, then I go back and fix it so I can't feel it anymore. And I do that with every single ring all the way. Always touching, always feeling them, making sure they're all perfect. Because that's how you get gobs of nice, silky smooth chainmail. Hope you guys can see what I'm doing, since this is the video you asked for. And that's it. I'll just do this until I'm done, which is pretty much never.